Good morning. My name is Jean. I am a knitter. I'm on my second loop through this particular process because I am in Arizona. Oh, good grief, I'm a wrinkled mess. And it is colder than I had thought it was this morning. And the heat came on in the middle of filming, and there was this great whirr going on in the background, which is not acceptable. I am a knitter who is not afraid to rip out. This is my sweater that doesn't care if stitches are falling off the needle because they'll just sit there. They don't rip, they don't run, they don't escape, they just kind of hang out. I feel this sweater has the personality of a Rastafarian island dweller who is not fazed by anything. But this Rastafarian personality sweater also was just this close to finished. And I tried it on, and the sleeves were too tight around my upper arm. So I ripped it out. I had bound off at the neck. I ripped out the bind off. I ripped out the ribbing. I ripped out the raglan decreases. And this is the body of my sweater. And here's a sleeve with no needle in it. And I will rip that out to about here and then do more increases closer together to get to a larger underarm diameter for my final diameter. And that will change how the whole sweater fits when it's done, because the yoke is a combination of the sleeve and the body. And the sleeve is too small, so I ain't afraid of no frog. This sweater I was actually thinking about because this sweater has the personality of an overachieving, straight A, valedictorian high school student that does not get into the college of their choice. It's an overachieving sweater. First off, I designed and knit this sweater when I was 25 years old. Yes, it still fits. I wanted the cables to have some definition and pop, and I wanted it to be very warm and dense. I had gone to school in Minnesota. I know what I needed. This sweater, I really wanted the cables to be cables. And it is a combination of one strand of sort of an Aran wool and one strand of alpaca. Now, when I was 25, we're not going to talk about it, but it was before we cared what breed of sheep our wool was made from. It was 100% virgin wool. I was fine. But the sweater has really good cable definition, and it has a great deal of warmth because there is also a strand of alpaca held in at the same time. This sweater was for a person on her second year of work out of college. Wildly expensive. I just bought a townhouse, working full-time, Parents had done a lot of help with the townhouse, but I had a budget. I stuck to my budget. This sweater has survived so many years because I have a cedar chest that I inherited from a great aunt. It lives in that cedar chest. The cedar chest also occasionally has paradichlorobenzene crystals added to it, which are classic moth crystals for the mothball smell. And when this sweater gets washed, for many years, I washed it with Tide. There was no Eucalan, there was no wool wash, there was none of that. You washed your sweaters in laundry detergent and you rinsed them. I might have used Dreft baby detergent, but more than likely it was Tide because that was what I had. It's too big to fit really in the kitchen sink that I had in that tiny townhome. So I would run water in the bath, add Tide, get it at a temperature where my hands weren't going to freeze, and then I would throw it in there and let it soak and do a little just poking at it and let it soak, and then I would carefully take it out. Don't take it out by a sleeve because the sweater is going to be wet, it's going to be heavy, it's going to pull itself out of shape. Scoop it up, do the best ring job I could, and then I would lay it flat on bath towels, terry cloth bath towels. I didn't have bath sheets back then. I had terry cloth bath towels. Some of which were the small ones. I would lay it out as flat as I could get it on the towels, and then I would roll it up into a towel and sweater like sushi roll, and I would walk on it. I wouldn't tap dance, but you just can't squeeze out enough water when this thing is so big and so thick and so heavy. Roll it up in a towel, walk on it. No tap dance, just squish, 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 squish. When the towel is soaked, go to a different towel, unroll it, roll it up. Maybe take 2 or 3 towels. It takes a lot of towels to get a sweater dry. And then I would lay clean, dry towels out, and I would lay this out flat, and I would get it into the shape that I wanted it to be in, laid out flat, and then I would walk away and leave it overnight. Easily. If I walked past it and it looked like, oh, this is a little wrinkly, I might pat it out. But basically, it just sat there. And the next day, I might put fresh, dry towels underneath it and turn it over. And do the same, kind of pat it into shape. No pins, no stretching. Come on. I knit this when I was 25 and I am 62 now, and it's in perfectly good shape. It was washed with Tide. It was laid out flat to dry. I would turn it over regularly as it was drying because it's so thick and so heavy and so warm. I have been known to put on a t-shirt, put this sweater on over it, and head out ice skating. Not like, but just kind of, oh, let's go skating. And I was warm. This thing it weighs a ton. I've got a scale around here somewhere, but it's not close enough. It's heavy. There's a lot of yarn in this thing. It's thick. The cables add some density. You will notice that there is a lovely halo on this sweater. This sweater is an overachiever. Why didn't it get into the college of its choice? I really should have put some lines of separation other than my decreased lines for my raglan, and it probably should have had popcorns, but I hate popcorns. So this sweater did not get into the college of its choice, but it is a high achieving sweater. When I am doing things like washing and blocking shawls, you got to remember, soap makes suds. Detergent does not. I don't want a lot of bubbles and suds. What I want is a detergent. As I said, Tide. Come on, it'll work. The trick is not to do a lot of agitation and to just lay flat to dry. That's for a sweater. If I've got something going on in my sweater and it's got shaping that I need it to stay, I am going to look at the pattern, if I still have it. And there will be, one hopes, a schematic, which is that outline drawing of the shape of the sweater. And it should have measurements as to how long and how wide and how long every piece and part should be. When I lay my sweater out flat to dry, I am going to refer to that schematic, and I'm going to have a tape measure, and I'm going to measure my sweater and pat it into the correct size and shape and let it dry. I will probably still do the multiple towel sushi roll step on it thing. Remember, we're not tap dancing. We're doing the tiny person walking on someone's back massage thing. We are not tap dancing, Irish step dancing. We're not even doing a waltz. But we're squishing the water out. Remember, people who have the last name Walker often had the job of walking on wool to full it, Fuller or Walker. But even then, they're not like dancing in the grapes. They're just walking. So I have a couple of options when I'm doing something that needs to be stretched and dried under tension. And that is, I have these lovely, I have a set of 4. They are 12 by 12, and they will give me something that is 2 foot square, 2 feet long, 2 feet high, and I can put pins in it. And in theory, they're 3/4 of an inch thick because that's what they advertise them as. I looked them up. If I get them $14.50 for 4 pieces, 12 by 12. Or I can get 9 pieces of 12 by 12, that is 3/4 of an inch thick, which will give me a piece that is 3 foot by 3 foot, and it will cost me, there will be 100 T-pins in there too. We'll talk about T-pins later. And that will cost me $45. However, I knit schlankets. They're huge. I have a 6-foot wingspan. I like big shawls, and I cannot lie. So I went to Harbor Freight. This is one piece. Ta-da! This is actually the top. Whoopee. The edge comes off so you can put it together however you need. And this is 26 inches, maybe, by 26. When you get them from Harbor Freight, You get 4 in a package. So you have a piece that is a good sized 4 foot by 4 foot. Still not large enough for me, but you know what? They cost $9.99. So for the $40 that I would have spent to get 3 foot by 3 foot, I will get something that I will get 3 packages of 4 foot by 4 foot. My brain is not up to square foot area. This is 1/2 inch thick. It's a heck of a lot cheaper. It's just as dense. It's just as pinnable. It's just as water resistant. No, it doesn't have a grid on it. Oh dear. I'm not spending that much extra money to get grid when I've got a schlanket to block. Pins. The important thing you have to have when you are using pins, whether it be stabbing them into your mattress, stabbing them into piled up towels, stabbing them into expensive, gridded, fancy, tiny mats, or stabbing them into anti-fatigue floor matting, they've got to be stainless steel. Now, I was gifted a lovely set of these blockers. Oh, please, focus. I hope. Can you read it? I can't see. I've got the wrong glasses on. I can't tell if it's in focus or not. There we go. Okay. They're gorgeous. They really are rainbow. They stay in the box. And nice, sharp, stainless steel pins. And no, they weren't cheap. They were a gift. I'm not looking up the price. I'm sorry, I can't do that to people. But I like them. I use them. They work. But I would have to get like 3, maybe 4 sets to really control and block out an entire schlanket with this. So let's find an alternative that's a little more budget friendly. Stainless steel pins. T-pins. Did you know that if you go searching online for stainless steel pins to block knitting, you can get 100 of them for, it's about $7. $6.99, $6.49, somewhere around there. But if you go looking for stainless steel wig pins that people will use on those styrofoam heads or foam heads to hold the wig so that they can style the hair, pin it in place, and then spray it or let it dry so that the wig has the style that they want, you can get 200 stainless steel wig pins for $7. And they look exactly like this. So, great. But am I really gonna pin all the way around a schlanket? Ain't nobody got time for that. I did spend the real money on these. It was a while ago. I don't remember. I think I've posted about them before. But these are premium lace blocking wires. They are also made of stainless steel to resist corrosion. I'm also going to tell you that you need to take a ultra fiber, microfiber cloth and wipe these off before you put them into your knitting, and you will see streaks of icky stuff coming off. That's okay, it's on the microfiber cloth, it's not on your knitting. It doesn't take long. Zoop, and they're clean. But look, my finger isn't. Anyway, you run this through your knitting. And then you can pull it out to the shape that you want. And if you need to curve it, you can. You can't really see, but this is a tiny little loop, folks. And it will spring back because stainless steel does that. It's got some boing to it. But if I put one pin here and one pin here and one pin here, it's going to stay where I put it. So my pins are going in like that across the top, and they're holding my wire where I want it. I blocked a blanket using this. It's in my projects page, blocked out. And first, I took my anti-fatigue floor mats, made a huge area. Then I started at the neck circle of my blanket, used a couple of these. And you can just, you don't have to hold it. Don't do this to them. Do this to them and pin, and it will be fine. And then I did the outside, pulled it from the neck out. Well, then I got my little spray bottle. And you have to pat because wool doesn't, you have to pat it. So you're spraying and you're patting and you're spraying and you're patting and you're spraying and you're patting. And the thing will relax and get a little bigger, especially if it is superwash. It's a matter of minutes, not hours, not 20 minutes, just a few minutes to repin these blocking wires out larger to allow for the relaxation of your superwash. You're on a waterproof mat. Don't worry about that. If you're trying to block out on your bed, you got to get it dry before you sleep, folks. The anti-fatigue mats can be kind of nudged around. Be careful. If you poked too far, they're going to be snagging on the carpet. The pins will go through. But you don't really need to poke the pin that far in to make it stay in place. Stainless steel pins, stainless steel blocking wires, I love them. I can use my stainless steel blocking wires for things that have absolutely straight edges, but I'm going to tell you, these things work just as well, and you don't need to use 5 sets to block a single sweater. I would need 3 or 4 sets to block a blanket. I didn't even use all my set of 100 T-pins. These blocking wires on a blanket, ideal. Did I wash my shawl with a detergent or a soap? No. I simply knit it, laid it out to almost right, sprayed it with distilled water because that's what I have because I do a lot of pressing with my fancy steam iron. Pat it so that the water will go into the fiber. Make sure it's square. Your tape measure will help. If you measure across and you measure up and down and you measure diagonally, your diagonal measurements have got to match if it's square, your sideways measurement and your up and down measurement, you get it. You get it. Geometry is not rocket science. Let it dry completely. Because if you pick it up while it is still damp, you haven't let it complete the blocking. It's got to be dry. If you live in a very humid climate, you might want to do your blocking in a place where you have air conditioning, because that will take some of the humidity out of the air. If you do not have access to air conditioning, let it get as dry as you possibly can, and then give it a little bit more time. Because shawls are not usually as thick as my crazy overachieving sweater, I don't turn a shawl over. It'll dry on one side just fine, and the other side will be just fine, and I don't need extra towels or anything like that. But the trick is, for something that needs a light block, you don't have to get it totally soaking, dripping wet. If you do get it totally soaking, dripping wet, when you take it out of the water, don't take it by a corner. Scoop under it, get the whole thing, lift it up. If you can't scoop under it and get the whole thing, well, then get a lightweight tea towel or some t-shirt or whatever. Scoop that under it and lift it up using that, so that your piece will not, with the weight of it, get pulled out of shape because it's wet. Roll it up into a sushi roll of towels and your knitted object or crocheted, and apply enough pressure. If you're strong enough to squeeze it to get it dry, good on you. I'm not. And my hands get sore and tired. It's okay to step on it. No tap dancing. Unroll it, clean, dry towels, and lay it out flat to dry. If you have to turn it over, make sure it's still laid out the way you want. Stuff like this, it's so thin you don't have to turn it over. And don't worry if you can't afford the super fancy luxury items. Anti-fatigue floor mats and wig pins will do just fine. A tape measure or a yardstick is very helpful in getting things lined up so that they are straight and square. And you don't have to have the $16 for 8 ounces special fancy wool wash. I've used ivory. I've used bar soap ivory and just rubbed the soap in the water until I got soapy water to clean my sweater. You do not need, as I believe it was Alden Amos talked about, spinning wheel lubrication. He's like, you don't need yak oil. Any old grease will do. You don't. Yes, those wool washes are wonderful, but they're not a requirement, and your sweater will survive. A mild soap, a baby soap, no bleach. Let's get there. No ammonia. I wouldn't even, just, and rinse. The other one is rinse by running more water in, putting it in, a little swish. Rinse, 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 rinse. Rinse until you might want to actually drink the rinse water. Don't do it. But if you are looking at that water and thinking, oh gosh, that still looks nasty, you need to keep rinsing. Rinse by scooping it out, wring gently by pressing to get as much water out as possible, run more water in, put it back in, do a little bit of squishy, tappy, lift it out carefully, keep rinsing. The rinse is actually going to be more work than the wash, and that's normal. But it's worthwhile. 35 years and counting. I didn't do anything fancy. I didn't do anything drastic. I just kept it simple and let it dry all the way. It's not rocket science. We've been washing wool since we've been washing sheep. It's not that hard. Trust yourself. You know what you're doing. Don't get too aggressive. Remember to scoop and squeeze. No wringing is a bad thing. It's okay to squeeze. It's okay to stomp. You can do it. Have faith in yourself. Your knitting is worth it. Keep knitting.